What's up, world? This is your guy, Guitar King, and today we're going to be talking about disappointment. Look, dealing with disappointment. We all have been disappointed a time or two or 100 in our life. But look, the definition of disappointment is when our expectation of a certain thing doesn't turn out the way that we want it to, the feeling that we get is disappointment. But at the end of the day, we cannot expect for everything to turn out the way that we think it's going to turn out. It's a running joke in life, man. It says that if we want to make God laugh, tell him what we think is going to happen. And that is so true. We cannot expect for things to go the way that we want it to turn out all the time, man. Especially if we're not living right. Especially if we're not living in God's will. If we're not walking in step with the Spirit, how can we expect for things to turn out the way that we expect for them to turn out, man? It's never going to happen. Let's go to the Bible. Proverbs chapters 3, verses 5 through 6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." Look, man, I'm guilty, you're guilty, he's guilty, she's guilty. We're all guilty, man. We want to direct our own paths. God gave us this free will, and instead of using that free will to follow his way, we want to follow our own way. But at the end of the day, look, man, we want to be out here manipulating and fornicating. And then when things go crazy, we disappointed that it didn't turn out exactly how we thought it was going to be. That is just backwards thinking. And like I said, God gave us free will. So I can't tell you not to be manipulating. I can't tell you not to be fornicating. But what I can ask you is, why are you so disappointed when that thing don't go the way that you thought it was going to go? When you know that you're not living right, how can you expect for things to be right? Look, the Rolling Stones said it best, man. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might get what you need. And at the end of the day, man, if you're watching this video, if you're alive today, you have always gotten what you needed. The proof is in the pudding. We're here. We're alive today. We're in God's grace and mercy. It's a blessing to still be here. So we have always got what we needed. But how do we deal with being disappointed? Well, like I said, it starts with living in God's will. It starts with understanding that the paths that we walk is already laid out. It's laid out for what God sees for us to do. But when we try to start doing our own thing, we know right from wrong. And when we try to start doing wrong on purpose, you can never expect for things to go the way that you think it's going to go. It's always going to end in disappointment when you're going in direct conflict with the will of God, man. Look, and I'm not saying that nobody's perfect. And at the end of the day, disappointment is not the destination. It's just part of the journey. Don't get stuck there. Don't stay at disappointment. Donnie McClurkin told us all years ago, we fall down, but we get up. A saint is just a sinner who fell down, man. Look, don't get stuck in disappointment. Don't let disappointment paralyze you and make you want to give up on life. We've all been there. But at the end of the day, God provides us the strength and the power and the resources and the community and people to help us to get us back up. If we only just choose that way and turn from our old ways that then knocked us down and made us fall down in the first place, we can always get back up and we can always get that thing back on the right track, man. Like I said, disappointment can shake us, but it can't break us. Look, man, don't let that disappointment distract you from your main thing. Living a life that's worthy of you. Living the life that God intended for you to live. Find your passion, find your purpose, and stick to that thing, man. Don't stray off the path. Stay within your lane. Don't be all swerving over there, swerving over here. When you're out of your lane, you're going to stay disappointed, man. Don't let that disappointment paralyze you, though. Like I said, don't let it knock you back. But sometimes we might have to stand still. But don't let it knock you off your path. Look. My most disappointing times, and I'm just being honest, is when I didn't get exactly what I wanted at the exact time I wanted it in the exact portions that I wanted it. Because look, man, at the end of the day, we all are creatures of the flesh. And we love instant gratifications. You remember that commercial, it's my money and I want it now, on the J.G. Wentworth tip. But at the end of the day, look, we got to learn to be patient. We got to learn long suffering. We got to learn that we pray for God to help us through this lifetime, because life is not easy. It's not fair. It's never going to be. And we have to understand that. And we can't be disappointed when we learn these lessons, because at the end of the day, lessons is blessings. It blesses us to know that we can build strength in times of hardship. We build strength in times of not getting what we want. And we find more joy and we find more pleasure when we do actually catch a break and something does actually go our way. Look, we appreciate that thing even more. And sometimes we can let disappointment push us in the wrong direction. We can let disappointment push us to feel inadequate or low self-esteem or anger and upset. Look, at the end of the day, acceptance is what we need to practice. Like I said, self-control and discipline. And when you practice those things, it kind of lowers the other things down. It lowers the anger. It lowers the anxiety. It lowers the depression, because we're practicing the strength part of it. Like I said, man, we all go through disappointment, but you got to learn to deal with it. You're not the only one. Help other people when they down. That will pick up your spirit. Practice kindness. Practice love. Look, man, it's almost in our essence to try to duck disappointment. But when you're trying to duck disappointment, that's just disappointing life right there, man. Look, life doesn't get any easier, but we can learn to get better at dealing with life when we just accept life for what it is. Life is going to be hard. It's not going to always go our way, but we can strengthen ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually, and we can learn to deal with these disappointments, man. Like I said, the definition of it is that when our expectations are not met. So don't expect for things to always go your way. Try your best not to disappoint others. You try your best not to be a disappointment, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed as much. Be prepared for the hard. Be physically strong. Be mentally strong. Be spiritually strong. You can't control who or what disappoints you. But what you can control is who or what you disappoint. You can control your actions and your effort. You can control your perception of things. And when you start to change the way that you think, you won't see things the same way, and you won't be disappointed as much when you do right by others. When your heart is in the right place, when your priorities is in the right place, when you living right, look, man, life is just less disappointing. We got to learn to deal with disappointments today, because this is just a way of life, and these things are just going to happen. You can't avoid it, man. They just too high to get over. They too low to get under. But when you learn to deal with them, you will never be stuck in the middle. This is your guy, Guitar K. Be more